There are few groups as infamous, disturbing, and recognisable as the subject of today's video, as today we will cover the founding of the KKK, the areas in which they operated, and how they have dwindled. It is perhaps helpful to start with the founding of the KKK. In 1865, the Confederate States had been defeated in the American Civil War. One of, if not the main cause of the Civil War, was as to the status of black people and the push to abolish slavery. Many who fought for the South owned enslaved people, or they were fearful that abolition would mean a war of retribution waged by black Americans against the former slaveholders. This fear continued for returning Confederate veterans. Many banded together in fraternal or vigilante groups, some with more disturbing activities. In the post-war South, it was not uncommon for bands of vagabonds or freedmen to roam, stealing to make a living in the war-torn region. One of these fraternal groups was formed by a group of former Confederate officers in Pulaski, Tennessee. They derived their name from the ancient Greek kyklos, meaning circle or cycle in terms of a sociological period. This word would become Ku Klux, and the group a clan. They gave themselves such titles as Cyclops or Wizard, and dressed in robes. It started as a harmless secret society, then grew in number through fraternal bonds, to eventually start groups in other southern states. Members of the clan would often go on nighttime rides with their horses to terrify black Americans and freed men. They would go to the often uneducated former slaves and present themselves as ghosts of former Confederate soldiers and terrorize them at night. There was at first no uniform or distinctive white robe and hood that is now associated with the clan. During the early years, members would wear all manner of elaborate clothing, including funnel hats, long gowns with red pants and white stripes. The first official leader of the KKK would be a former Confederate general named Nathan Bedford Forrest, and he became known as the Grand Wizard, though he was by no means the only Confederate general in their ranks. During this time, attempts were made at what was termed the Reconstruction. After the years of turmoil of the war and the upheaval of the Emancipation Proclamation, much work needed to be done. Reconstruction sought to address the inequality experienced by black people in the South, encouraging them to engage in the political process. However, groups such as the KKK opposed attempts at Reconstruction. The Klan believed that Reconstruction was an attempt to hand political control of the South to carpetbaggers, Southerners who opposed the Confederacy and blacks. The term carpetbaggers was used to describe Northern Republicans suspected of moving south after the Civil War with the intention of exploiting Southerners. The notion that something must be done to stop Reconstruction saw the Klan turn into a political vehicle. In April of 1867, one of the founding members of the Klan, Frank McCord, attended the Tennessee State Conservative Convention in Nashville. It is believed that he sold the Klan's vision to other prominent conservatives, which is how the Klan attracted General Forrest to become the first Grand Wizard. The Klan was organized in military fashion, but without a centralized leadership. It absorbed other vigilante groups and had affiliations with others, swelling its ranks. Local clans had free rein to reach the aims of stopping Reconstruction, however they so wished. Southern Democrats feared the growing support for Northern and Republican politicians, who black Americans and freedmen favored over the former slave-holding elite. Again, this fear only fueled support for the Klan. Membership transcended social or class status. Farm laborers, lawyers, bankers, tradesmen, and all members of the elite joined. While many groups rose to infamy to stop Reconstruction, the KKK was the most violent. The sorts of violence employed often started with a warning letter to the target. This would be to make a person or family flee a given area, lest they face the Klan. If this letter was ignored, the Klan would turn up in person, usually at night, and fully robed. Often the victim would be beaten and whipped. Murder was often a tool of last resort, but was by no means uncommon. For those who betrayed the secrecy of the Klan, or if a black person was accused of assaulting a white woman, murder was immediately employed. The exact scale of the violence and intimidation is hard to know, but it is thought that at least 2,000 people were murdered by the Klan during the Reconstruction period. Those who set up schools for African Americans or those who engaged in the political process were targeted. The violence of the Klan allowed Southern Democrats to succeed in elections, as those who sought to represent the freedmen were beaten and driven out. The Klan also sought to crush any attempts of black economic empowerment. All of this violence was not used solely against black people, but white people as well. Any white merchant who purchased cotton from black farmers or white teachers looking to educate freedmen were also threatened, beaten, and killed. But the key goal of the Klan was to return black Americans to a place of servitude. In 1870 and 1871, Congress passed the Enforcement Acts, otherwise known as the Ku Klux Klan Act. This was the first piece of American legislation that held individuals and states punishable under federal law for hate crimes or for stopping people from engaging in the political process because of race. Federal troops were deployed to the South by President Ulysses S. Grant to arrest members of the KKK. Hundreds of Klan members were imprisoned, with habeas corpus suspended in parts of Southern Carolina, the hotbed of Klan activity. This largely brought to an end the widespread Klan activity, but not for their brand of intimidation and violence which continued with other groups, and plenty of people still romanticized their actions. The KKK would rise for the second time, coinciding with the release of the film Birth of a Nation in the year 1915. A man by the name of William J. Simmons sought to revive the Klan, who himself held membership in dozens of other groups. Inspired by the movie, he and 34 others met at Stone Mountain, Georgia on Thanksgiving night. They set a cross ablaze and declared the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan reborn. The symbol of the burning cross would become one of the more potent symbols of hate. Not only was this part of the Klan's rituals, but it was also used as a form of intimidation. Much of the iconography of the Second Klan came not from the first, but from the film Birth of a Nation, including the burning cross. Their ideology expanded upon the racism of the first. They were anti-Catholic, anti-Semitic, and anti-immigrant, in addition to being anti-African American. These groups were painted as un-American, and that only the Klan's values could hold back the supposed threat to the white American way of life. The Klan sought to push Protestant values, nationalism, and white supremacy. The infamous white pointed hood and robes were adopted during this time. Against the backdrop of global recession, with fears of communists arriving on American shores from Eastern Europe, and with existing prejudice for many minorities in the United States, the new Klan sought to garner wide support. At its peak in 1923, the Klan boasted a membership of 4 to 6 million across 45 states. Governors and senators were elected with the backing and help of the Klan, with Senator Hugo Black from Alabama being a member. Membership quickly grew, though it tended to be more middle-class, small business owners and their families who were members of the Second Klan. The use of violence was deemed acceptable to achieve the Klan's aims. From the flogging of Mexican immigrants to harassing sex workers to the lynching of African Americans, the crimes of the Klan were numerous. Some of the more horrific acts included the abduction and mutilation of an African American man named Alex Johnson. Alex was accused of having sex with a white woman, and for this he was beaten and branded with the letters KKK on his forehead and dumped at a riverbed. This riverbed became the staging ground for the punishments levelled against the enemies of the Klan. Often, journalists would be invited to the floggings and beatings so they could spread the message to others. Alongside these acts of violence were Klan-sponsored picnics, concerts, and parades. They professed to push family values and charity, so long as it was in line with their bigoted worldview. On the 8th of August 1925, some 30,000 Klansmen marched through the capital, Washington, D.C. The day after, tens of thousands watched an 80-foot cross burn near the Arlington Cemetery. The end of the Second Klan came from several factors, notably the abduction, murder, and essay of Madge Oberholzer. by leading Grand Dragon of Indiana, David Stevenson. The trials brought to light not only the criminal element, but the hypocrisy of the leaders of the Klan. Rampant embezzlement of funds only exacerbated the matters, but chiefly the fears that the Klan sought to push of white replacement and loss of power did not materialize. Immigration controls limited the number of Eastern Europeans, and there was no social unrest with the movement of African Americans. White Protestants retained their place in society, and the need for the Klan to defend that status faded. However, the third era of the KKK would soon come. The third era began in the 1950s. Attempts were made by African Americans to end segregation and discriminatory practices, but this was met with resistance by smaller Klan groups. The third period was arguably one of the most violent periods for the Klan. The 1954 Supreme Court decision of Brown v. the Board of Education was the first step in removing segregation, ruling it unconstitutional. The Klan was recharted, at first with the goal of preventing African Americans from entering formerly white-only schools. When African Americans staged sit-ins at segregated restaurants, so too did the Klan's activity increase. By the 1960s, the Klan had fragmented into 20 or so chapters without strong leadership. One of the more disturbing crimes committed by the Klan was the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. On Sunday, the 15th of September 1963, members of the KKK planted a timer bomb at a church in Birmingham, Alabama. The city was noted for being one of the more segregated places in the country. Many black homes and institutions had already been bombed. Civil rights activists had waged a long campaign for equality, with the church on 16th Street being a rally point for protests and activity. For that reason, the church was targeted and a bundle of 19 sticks of dynamite was planted. Just after 10:20 a.m., the bomb exploded, killing 4 young girls. The girls were Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, all aged 14, and Carol Denise McClare, aged 11. One of the girls was only able to be identified through her clothing, and another had been decapitated by the explosion. Those responsible were identified as 4 known Klans members. However, it would not be until 1977 that any prosecutions were brought, which at this point one of the Klan members had already died. As the civil rights movement continued to gain ground, the KKK began to fade. By 1970, they had a national membership of just 5,000, though the violence did not end. On the 3rd of November 1979, members of the Klan and neo-Nazis killed a number of communist protesters at the Greensboro massacre. The communists had organized a rally named Death to the Klan, and because of this, they were fired upon by the Klan. 5 people were killed, and 12 were injured in the shootout. Today, the Klan is a fringe organization and well recognized as a hate group. Their influence is nothing compared to what it has previously enjoyed. Today, the Klan also includes Muslims and homosexuals as targets. The KKK will remain one of the more well-known hate groups for its striking imagery and disturbing use of violence to oppose equality and to prevent progress. They should be properly understood as to avoid such groups taking hold again.